My name is Paul Chavez. I'm the Director of Systems Applications for Harman, and I'm really happy to introduce Casey Sherred. Casey is a consultant with Acoustic Dimensions, has been a consultant there for 11 years, worked on a variety of house of worship, performing arts, and sports projects over that period of time. And I've known Casey for just a couple of years now, but shortly after I met him, he impressed me as someone who had a really good balance of what we traditionally think of as an AV consultant, combined with somebody who really understands other technologies, newer technologies, networking technologies, and the mind to be able to really combine these things. So I often talk with Casey. He was on the BIM task force for Infocom, so he's been involved in sort of pushing some new things that are happening in the industry. So, please give him a warm welcome. Look forward to hearing from him.
Thanks, Paul. By utilizing AVB distribution, you can save time, money, and have the flexibility to adapt to changing requirements. Has a client ever told you the week before opening that they needed additional capability? I think we've all been there. With AVB, these types of changes are possible, and that means we have a successful project from the client's point of view. We've heard a lot today about AVB and all these different facility types, and I'm going to talk about house of worship and how it relates to that. But I wanted to first define, what do churches do? So I'm going to ask for some help here. Anybody just throw out ideas? Communicate. So preaching, right? Preaching. There's singing. What? Stream. So you got preaching, streaming, or communicating. Churches also have worship. They have concerts. They do conferences and seminars. They have large-scale productions. So churches really are, in a lot of ways, the culmination of everything we've heard all day, right? They do a little bit of everything. So this requires infrastructure that supports not only growth, flexibility, but scalability. Because they don't, for large-scale productions, they don't need that, but maybe 2 times a year. Other times, it's just the 90% rule is what we try to design to. You know, they need the base level to pull off a weekly service. In our church projects, we have anywhere from 60 to 120 microphone inputs. We deploy data tie line systems to use with headphone monitor systems, video over twisted pair, data access to the church's network, system control and monitoring for DSP networks, and control systems. We also deploy various audio tie line systems to route signals between front of house, monitor world, audio and video production spaces, and ancillary spaces like chapels or fellowship halls. Each of these lines are typically point-to-point, creating a labyrinth of conduit and cabling that connects all these spaces together. Recently, I had a 2,500 seat church that I was working on with an AVL budget of about $1.2 million. The conduit infrastructure for that project was somewhere around $120,000, just for the conduit. That's not cabling, just conduit systems. So I'd rather spend that money, if it's come out of my budget, on technology and equipment than on metal in walls and floors. We also worked with a Fellowship Bible Church in Little Rock, Arkansas, where they have 3 separate worship venues in one building that each have different styles of worship. The pastor is able to teach in any one of the spaces, and then we route that audio and video signals to the other spaces on the campus for the worship service. They also do a online service that's interactive with worship and chat, and some other things like that. So being able to have that flexibility is a pretty big thing for them. However, it comes at a price, and I haven't yet met a church that wasn't budget conscious. Other churches do a similar thing, but they have only one worship space. They don't build 3. They have one, so they do it with multiple services. And they'll have a traditional service, maybe first hour, second hour, maybe a contemporary service, with often maybe 10 to 15 minutes of turnaround time between. And you go from a full choir and orchestra down to a praise band, something like that. Oftentimes using wagons or carts to move instrumentation around the stage, and multi-pin connections to make those quick disconnects. However, those multi-pins bend easily, and they're time-consuming and costly to maintain, especially for volunteer church staff. So AVB allows us to do it faster, better, and cheaper. Instead of thousands of feet of cabling and conduit, we can provide a completely networked solution, distributing data outlets wherever we need them, platform, other spaces, and we can really start to piggyback on the data infrastructure that's already going to be in place in a lot of these spaces. We can use AVB devices that allow us to drop an I/O box anywhere on the platform we want, have all that stuff connected. We need to move it. We simply unplug it, move it, plug it into another place. We're not chasing those inputs on the console because they're already mapped. It's just we plugged it in someplace else. We're not chasing all that information. So a complete AVB solution, from microphone inputs to speakers, amplifiers, reduces the amount of time it takes us to verify that the system is wired correctly. It's one cable, makes it pretty simple. It also eliminates the traditional cabling I/O, and we're reduced down to a single wire infrastructure. This gives us consolidated labor costs, reduced, and allows us to reduce the amount of DSP we're using. We only have to worry about the horsepower that's required, not adding all these additional devices to get our channel counts up to where we need them. A shift to a unified standard means we rely more on structured networks for the delivery of our signals within our systems. And there's been a lot of doom and gloom about the convergence of AV and IT, and where the primary thinking has been, the IT industry could easily swallow the AV industry because of their size and just the mass that they have. But I think it's really going to come down to us giving over the infrastructure to those guys, letting them maintain and manage that and install that. And they single source, single contractor providing the warranty for the infrastructure, freeing us up as consultants, designers, integrators to deliver the systems that we got into this business to deliver. This also can save us time and money on the AV budget side, reducing our labor associated with providing, pulling, and terminating all the cables that we do right now. I don't know that anybody really loves pulling cable. That's their passion, and that's why they got into this business. If you're out there, God bless you, because that's not me for sure. We will have to work more closely with IT staffs, and one of the biggest challenges is understanding their priorities. In the IT world, they've sacrificed some things and prioritized standardization and maintainability over what's the best performance system we can put in. So we've got to, kind of understand their perspective on things. And the IT industry operates on a large number of open standards. AV is in the beginning stages of developing these open standards, like AVB, which Avenue's a big part of that. There's been a lot of talk about the control side, and there are open standards being developed for control. That's part of the Open Control Architecture Alliance. Right now, it's a small group that is developing a outline that is going to be submitted to the IEEE to develop further. So it's a closed, from what I understand, a closed alliance right now of about 6 companies or so. But the premise behind that is really allowing any console, for example, to speak to anybody's mic pre and be able to deliver. I don't want to have to go through a software, some other third-party thing. I want to reach for a knob on my console and adjust the gain and be done with it. I don't want to think about, oh, I have to go over here. It's just, we don't have time to deal with stuff like that in a live environment, let alone teach volunteers how to deal with these complicated systems. So the bottom line is AVB is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a big world out there, and we're a very small part of it. And clients are not going to accept the dedicated cabling systems that we've done in the past in the future. You think about our homes. A lot of more and more of our devices are networked and and we're networking them to deliver content and to share media within our own houses. You have Apple TVs, Blu-ray players, you have the control systems, and clients are they're starting to, and they're going to continue to say, I can do this at my house, why can't I do this in my church? It's, of course, it's a much larger scale, and right now, a lot of those systems don't scale easily. AVB allows us to scale this with the Ethernet backbone. We need an integrated design approach where we're communicating and collaborating with other design professionals to meet clients' needs instead of designing our own silos. So we need to be talking to all these other people. It's going to change the dynamic of how we work together, from consultant to integrator, and to IT designers, to architects, to everybody on the project. We've got to do a better job of communicating and changing the way we work. Because we are going to share the same backbone with VoIP, data, fire alarm, building management systems, security and access control, AV. Although our traffic may be segregated, we're still going to be on the same systems. So we don't have all the answers yet, but AVB is definitely a part of the solution. So just think about how you can change to help push this through. That's all I got.